Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing today? It's your guy, DeMarcus Tunstall, with the Beta Project here. You can always find us on YouTube at Humble and Focus. Today is November 21st, 2019. Today should be Thanksgiving, but for some reason they moved it back, but we won't talk about that. But today's quote is going to be, every block of stone has a statue inside of it, and it's the task of the sculptor to discover it, by Michelangelo. And I assume that's Michelangelo, either that or that's just some guy looking over to the left, trying to see what's up over there. But anyways, today's video is titled Sculpted. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? All right. How are you doing? So, Sculpted, pretty big deal, pretty interesting. I came across this for a couple reasons. So let me bring up this quote that I want to give you, because this is kind of, I write things in my notebook and then I go back and I utilize that to create the video. But I want to read what I wrote. It says, who is sculpting you? Who is creating a blueprint of you? Be very careful about who you let mold you, because they may not be the right one to get you to your greatness. Broken creates broken. And the idea I had, and the thought I was having, and let's see if I can bring it up while I talk. So the idea I was having here is, you guys remember in Toy Story, and you had Sid's toys, and like all those toys, right? And it was pretty cool. Those toys were pretty radical. They were kind of like off the chain. There's no real other way to describe that except for they were really off the chain. And so the reason I'm bringing up Sid's toys and everything else is because, ladies and gentlemen, those toys were able to put back together toys, but they were only able to create themselves. Like, when they put themselves back together, they put a toy back together with itself, right? But at the same time, they never fixed themselves. If you didn't notice that, like, they always look different. They always had that different look to them. I'm trying to see if I can find a good picture to put in here, because they always look different, right? So they were awesome. The mutant toys, they were awesome, right? But they couldn't be anything more than what they were. I'm trying to get this in here. That's why I'm kind of stuttering over this. I apologize. I'm gonna pull this up right now. I forgot I wanted to put this in here, and you'll know what I mean when you see them. Hold on. Let's see here. Set. There we go. All right. So you guys remember these guys? Remember? Hold on. There we go. Yeah, those guys. So I mean, not to say that they weren't awesome, not to say that they weren't fantastic creatures, but they never tried to fix themselves. They only made themselves out of what they knew or what they had at the time, right? And so the reason that I'm bringing this up and why I think it's a big deal is because, ladies and gentlemen, we're consistently being sculpted. We're consistently being made, and we're consistently being, hit here and hit there and knocked here and not there to knock off the pieces of the access to create something magical. Every piece of, every piece that we don't need needs to be knocked away. And the reason I brought up this particular topic is because there was a person I used to talk to, and back in the day, and that I cared for him at one point in time, but now, I should have saw a lot of signs. But because they were being sculpted by people outside, like really, like the friends that they had were really like skeptical. And it's either now, more recently, or then somebody told this person, hey, there are no consequences to your actions. And this person was not making good choices. So that's how I know that when they said that to me, I was like, wait a second, whoa. What do you mean there's no consequences to your action? That's all that life is. There is consequences to the actions that we choose. But the person who was telling them this was sculpting them and creating something in them that they were utilizing. That's why I'm saying we must be very careful about who and what we allow to sculpt us. Be very careful about who your architect is that's creating your blueprint. When you have people telling you that there's no consequence to your action and you believe that, you're going to act accordingly. If you have somebody that tells you that righteousness is the way to go, you're going to believe that too, depending on how you're being sculpted. If you're religious, you're consistently being sculpted and you're consistently wanting to change and grow. Personal development, same thing, you're being sculpted. But as long as you're staying around people who are not fixed and are broken too, they can only fix you up to what they understand and what they know. The reason that they were able to put Buzz back together is because they knew that Buzz had all the parts there. But they weren't even able to fix themselves. But instead, they created the best version of them that they could create at this time with what they had. But a true sculptor, ladies and gentlemen, like the David, let me put this quote up here. Man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both marble and the sculptor. The reason I pulled this up is because I want you to think of yourself as a giant block of marble that must be ding, 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 ding. Because inside of that marble, the David was created. They gave a big block of marble, and David came out of that marble. Which means that that masterpiece was created from within that marble. Which means that you are also going to be created from within. But, ladies and gentlemen, David did not sculpt himself. David was a product, not a product. Yeah, I guess he was a product. He was a product of someone else's thought process, of someone else's belief and mindset, and someone else's creation. That's what David was. So what you got to be worried, you got to be very aware of who you're allowing to put information into, who you're allowing to put energy into, what relationships you're allowing to continue, what people you're allowing to stay in your life. Why? Because they are creating your masterpiece on a consistent basis. Everybody thinks that, I deserve a better life, but you're not sculpting. It's like putting a piece of clay or a piece of marble in front of you and saying, I deserve something great to come out of this, but you never pick up the tools to start hammering away. Or you never let somebody else start hammering away that knows what they're doing. Instead, it's like giving a chisel and a hammer to a child and saying, go after this. Or a teenager, you might get an inappropriate one. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. What you allow, who you allow to sculpt you will create who you're going to be. So the question is, who are you allowing to get after you? Are you going to allow somebody like Sid's Toys? Sid's Toys, who obviously couldn't fix themselves because you're not allowed to fix yourself. It's about going outside of yourself to find the internal that's already there. Or are you going to let somebody who understands, get a mentor or a colleague who sees you for who you were? The Island of Misfit Toys, they never fixed themselves either. They just automatically, they were so broken that all they did is just name the island after themselves and said, okay, that's cool, we'll live here. Ladies and gentlemen, you're so much more than what you are right now. You were only a block of clay, and even if, or let's say a marble stat or marble block, even if you have been taken away or letting somebody take away at you, ladies and gentlemen, you're not a finished product. The problem is that everybody seems to think they're already finished because they're grown. Just because you're grown doesn't mean you're finished. As a matter of fact, I can tell you right now, because you're grown, you probably got a lot more work to do, but you're not willing to do it because there's a certain point where we feel like, ages 1 through maybe 16, where we can get some work, but then after 16, we know already what's best for us. And when we're grown-ups, we already have our real our routines established, so it's going to be harder to change that. But it's hard to sculpt something, ladies and gentlemen, when you're going after and you're sculpting a clay block. It's not easy. It's going to take some work to knock that out, ladies and gentlemen. Could you imagine how different the world would be if that person I was talking about, if everybody in the world listened to that person who was chiseling away at that person I was talking about earlier, who was saying that there's no consequence to your action? Could you imagine what the world would be? That's why you have to be very aware of what goes in here, ladies and gentlemen, because they're programming you. The person I'm talking about, when they heard that there was no consequence to their actions, they started acting accordingly, and guess what? They had to go because they weren't quality. You can very easily mess up the David, by giving him, like, knocking off his nose. And no longer is the masterpiece. It's a different masterpiece. Now, I'm not saying you need to, that everything about you sucks, but I'm saying you're not done yet. Keep going. You're being sculpted every single day. Hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, you're allowing yourself to be sculpted every single day, and you're not fighting back against it. This is an important part of growing to the next part of your life. Just because you're growing and you got a job does not mean that your life is over, nor does it mean that you're not finished growing. Put it in. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't allow somebody who knows how to build or knows how to sculpt or has a general idea of where they're going, and you like the idea of where they're going, and it's a positive way to go, I would highly recommend you don't let them work on your masterpiece, because that's all you are. You are a masterpiece, but it's up for you, and it's up to you to make sure that your artist, your sculptor, your creator is one of class and caliber. What are they plugged into? What are they reading? What kind of person do they represent themselves as? You know what I'm saying? That's why, a lot of people kind of end up on the wayside, because broken creates broken. Flawed creates flawed. Things that cannot fix themselves cannot fix you. But we have to stay in a position to keep letting and finding those artists that can chisel off a little bit to get us to the next level so we can see more. You get what I'm saying? And that's all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to be very careful and very aware of who is sculpting you. You're being sculpted all the time. Who is the one that's chiseling away? Who has your dreams and your creation, the ending matter in your hands? Because the ending, whenever they did David, there had to be an ending in mind. So my question is, who's sculpting you? Who's going after it? Sistine Chapel. He didn't just go up there and go, you know what? I don't know what to do. Here, let me paint a finger here. Ooh, I'm going to put it to a guy. Ooh, I have another. No, man. There had to be a plan to go out to it. So anytime you see some extension of artwork, even a building, ladies and gentlemen, a building just doesn't get put up. There's plans behind it. Could you imagine how different a building would be if all the buildings were made by people who had no idea how to build, no idea how to create, no idea about the tools, no idea about the materials? Could you imagine what you would create? You would create crap, and it would not be safe for anybody. But that's the whole point. That's the whole point, ladies and gentlemen. Be very aware who you're letting mess with your masterpiece. Be very aware of who you're letting create and who you're letting who you're letting create on you. Deny people who don't have that right mentality. It's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't hurt you to get away from people who don't know how to sculpt. And you're not going to be able to sculpt somebody else if you're still in progress. Keep going. Keep going. Get to the point where you can bring people along and they can find a sculptor too. I promise you they're out there. Mentors all day long. Find them. I didn't really believe in that back in the day, but you need to find them, because otherwise you're going to let somebody blind lead you. The blind leading the blind. You've heard of that before, right? Think about that in the perspective of trying to blind leading the blind, and you're trying to grow and go to the next level, and you've got a blind person, not physically blind, but you know, someone who's blind to the world trying to lead you. Guess what's going to happen? You're not going anywhere. And blind is not going to sculpt like somebody else does, you know, but the master is what you're looking for. Whether it be God, I would highly recommend getting into church and letting God sculpt you. I'm telling you, he does it through people. He does it through the book that's there. Find it. Find your sculpture. Don't be scared to get out there and change yourself. As a matter of fact, be appreciative you have another day of life to do so, because that means you're here for a reason. And it's not just to sit on the couch and watch the Kardashians. And that's all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. I believe and I love in each and every single one of you. 5 things of gratitude today. I'm grateful for those 5 books, those 10 books, the Secret, that are going to come to my house, and I can give them away for free to the people. I'm grateful that, my neighbor's house burned down last night. Literally, like, stuff exploding. I'm grateful that we were able to get, not we, my neighbor, I was there, but not really there, but I'm grateful that that neighbor was able to get out of the house, and the 2 neighbors on the side was able to get out of the house, and nobody was hurt. All that was hurt was just the actual physical stuff, the garage that was bit, and some of the house damage, but I'm grateful that nobody died. That's huge. I'm grateful that I woke up again today and my lungs are feeling great, even though I was outside inhaling smoke, at 12 o'clock at night. I'm grateful for the friends and the family and the people that are joining me and running with me. Why? Because we're going to change the world. Like, it's awesome to be able to infuse yourself into situations to change. I'm right now I'm being sculpted to become the sculptor, if that makes any sense. And I'm sculpting right now, and that's awesome. And last but not least, I'm glad for the woman that's on her way. You know me, I'm a hopeless romantic. I say things like that. But it's all about the sculpt, man. It's all about the sculpt. I wanted to talk today about the visualization, because that's what I went to in The Secret today. I brought the book back to talk about it. But I think I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, because it was pretty big. But yeah, be grateful. What are the 5 things you're grateful for? Put them on the video. All right, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a blessed day.